Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jessica Safransky-Schott, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer here at United Way of Racine County, and we are thankful for you spending the next hour with us today. United Way of Racine County fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in our community. And when we say health, that includes mental health. Every year, United Way invests over $300,000 in programs that support the mental health of Racine County residents of every age, every race, every gender, and every sexual orientation. The services provided by those programs include clinical therapy, support groups, prevention programs, crisis response, and so much more. NAMI Racine County is one of United Way of Racine County's longstanding partners in our work to support the mental health of the nearly 200,000 individuals who call Racine County home. NAMI Racine County exists to fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for policies that support people with mental illness and their families. And so in recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month, this month, May, United Way of Racine County is proud to collaborate with NAMI to offer this special edition of Ending the Stigma. We know that many of you with us today work in the nonprofit sector. In your roles, you serve individuals and families who are directly and indirectly impacted by the effects of stigma in untreated mental health issues. While we hope the information presented today is useful in your professional life, we also hope that the information will be useful to you as individuals who may also be living with mental illness or have individuals in your personal life that may deal with mental illness. In a moment, you're going to hear from Sherry and Vishal from NAMI Racine County. During their presentation, please use the chat box to submit questions, as we have reserved a few minutes at the end of our time together for Q&A. Within the next 48 hours following today's session, you'll receive a follow-up email that includes a recording of today's session and information about next steps and information about resources that you can use to fight for the mental health and end stigma against mental health of every person in our community. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Sherry Hess, and I am the program coordinator here at NAMI Racine County. Please be gentle with me. This is my first time doing Ending the Silence for Families. I usually am looking at a whole room full of completely uninterested teenagers at this point. So yeah, so I have that presentation down pat, but anyway, this is my first time doing this presentation. It's very similar to the presentation that we give to our teenagers. Right now we are doing, or we have done this school year, all of the schools in Racine, the high schools, we've done their freshman health classes. So we're really definitely getting the word out there. And I think that is so important. We definitely didn't have anything like this when I was growing up. It would have been nice to have. My partner in crime today is Vishal Patel. And after my presentation, after my PowerPoint, he's going to be sharing his lived experience with mental illness. So he'll be able to tell you a little bit about himself during that portion. So that being said, I'm going to try to share my screen. All right, are we good? Yay, go me. All right, so like I said, this is geared towards like families. So you're looking at your teenagers, youngsters, but it also can be applied to adults, your friends, your family members. This isn't just exclusively for kids. So we're not asking you to, you don't have to diagnose anybody, even though, in our heads, we always, oh, I bet they have this, I bet they have that. That's not what this is for. This is to give you, to be able to, for you to recognize the signs of mental illness and to see the warning signs. Because the sooner that you can get help for someone, the better their chances of recovery sooner. Looking back now, I probably had a lot of signs and symptoms and warning signs when I was in high school, but didn't recognize that there was no education towards that. So my diagnosis is actually bipolar 2 disorder. And the reason I talk about it so openly is that I wish everybody could talk about it so openly, because the biggest reason people don't get help is because of the stigma surrounding mental illness. All right, so again, like I said, I want to give you some signs, some symptoms, some warning signs. How many of you, and I know we can't really raise our hands, I can't see all of you, but just think in your minds, how many of you have ever like looked at your child or a teenager, and wondered, is this typical teenage behavior, or is this something I need to worry about? I've been there. With my teenage daughter, I'm like, this behavior cannot be normal. Turns out it was normal, typical teenage behavior. We would yell back and forth and have fights, and I would tell her what the rules are and she would argue with it. That's kind of normal behavior. And I don't like really using the word normal. I don't think anybody is normal. I think we all have our quirks, but typical teenage behavior. And have you ever been intimidated by talking to your child or someone else about mental health, about mental illness? Again, we want to normalize that conversation. All right. A lot of times people will say that mental health is like physical health, but that's not true. Mental health is physical health, because we don't go carrying around our brains in our purse or a backpack. We don't be like, hey, I brought my brain. Nope, we have it in our heads, and that's part of our physical being. So we have to recognize that that is a physical problem, a physical ailment. And mental health issues can affect how you think, how you act, and how you feel. These are the statistics. Numbers aren't really my thing. So luckily, someone did the math for me. That's awesome, because I can't do math. So if there are 30 students in a class, it's likely that 5 of them will experience symptoms of a mental health condition just alone this year. It's also likely that 5 high school students will give serious consideration to suicide. That's pretty scary. I mean, I look at that statistic and I'm like, wow, like 5 out of 30, that's really common. And then the other statistic that shocked me was half of all lifetime cases begin by age 14. If I would have recognized those signs in myself, or somebody else would have recognized those signs at 14, I could have gotten where I am today a lot sooner. I would have gotten help sooner. I would have probably come up with a plan to attack that mental illness sooner. But thankfully I did get here, get where I am now. But just to be aware of how common this is and how we can stop it just by having the knowledge and the courage to address it. I look at this slide and I thought, wow, obsessive compulsive disorder is like, whoa, it's really big. It's like the biggest thing on that page, right? That doesn't mean that it is the scariest or biggest or most common. This is just a combination of all different mental health conditions to be looking out for. They're always in a range of severity. So somebody could have anxiety where it affects their everyday life, and maybe they short of breath, or they just feel like very anxious, shaky. Or you could have all the way to you're having a panic attack and it's very severe and you don't know when it's going to stop, or you're going to need medication for it, or, you know, medical intervention. So there can be like very mild symptoms of different mental illnesses, all the way up to very serious. And these are just a few major mental health conditions that we deal with pretty commonly. They can also be brief or long lasting. So if you're going through something, say you have a depressive disorder, that could be brought on by an external factor, like a death in the family that really affected you. And you might have to go see a therapist or be put on medication or have some kind of intervention to deal with that. And after you have processed it and dealt with it, you no longer need care. You're able to go back to the life that you had before. Sometimes it's a lifelong thing. You're going to have to find a course of treatment that works for you. And you're going to have to deal with that the rest of your life. It just depends. I always tell the kids when I do these trainings in the high schools that these are no one's fault. No one, literally no one on the planet asks for a mental health condition. You don't sit on Santa's lap as a child and be like, you know what? I want a toy truck and give me some ADHD too. No one asks for it. It's no one's fault. You didn't do anything wrong. And again, it's nothing to be ashamed of. With kids as well as adults, it's hard because you want people to be able to talk. I want everybody to be able to talk about this. I wouldn't be ashamed or you wouldn't be ashamed if you had asthma or diabetes, right? And you had to pull out your inhaler and, you know, regulate your breathing. This is the same for mental health conditions. Should be no one that's afraid to say, I have bipolar 2 disorder. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. Because like I said before, stigma, we're trying to reduce that stigma. It is no big deal. I always say that having bipolar 2 disorder is literally not even in the top 10 most interesting things about me. It's just a part of who I am. It doesn't define me. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal. All right, 4 steps to early intervention. We're gonna want to know the warning signs, which hopefully you will by the end of this. Reach out and respond. That's a tough one. It's uncomfortable to approach somebody, especially about their mental health, because of the stigma again. But it's uncomfortable. Nobody says, hey, I'm going to go talk to my friend today and I'm going to tell her that I think she has obsessive compulsive disorder and I want her to get help. Nobody wants to have that conversation. But it's important. It's important to get comfortable with reaching out to people and responding to those warning signs. With kids, you're going to want to work with their school staff and your child. And that is because with the school system, your teacher or your teachers that have your child all day long, they really get to know them and they know what their usual typical behavior is, and they would be able to recognize something that's not typical behavior for that child. And then step 4, you're going to want to provide resources and support. And that's where we come in a lot of times. We offer free peer-led support groups. So you come to us and we will say that you will come to one of our support groups, and it's always somebody who has experience with mental illness, either themselves or somebody very, very close to them. And then we also can provide other resources and support too. There are other places in the community. I just know that we are able to provide a lot of support, and then we can point you in the right direction too, depending on your needs. Now, when we're seeing the warning signs, we're going to kind of, if you have a kid who is like arguing with you all the time, is that typical or is that not typical? And this is kind of how we're going to try to define the warning signs. So you're going to look at intensity. These mental health conditions are, sorry, I had to answer our doorbell. Sorry about that. They're constant, they're unrelieved, and they're challenging. So they're not going away. And this isn't just, I'm nervous about a test and I have the spinal and it's making me so nervous. And then as soon as you have the test, it goes away and you move on with your day. You move on until the next big test comes up. The difference is if this anxiety won't go away and if it's interfering with this person's life, they can't live the life that makes them happy. Feelings of nervousness and distress, but it resolves itself again. And then how long does it last? We at NAMI seem to use the 2-week mark. If you have something that goes on for 2 weeks, say that you're depressed, every day you wake up and you don't want to get out of bed, you can't get out of bed, you're missing work, you are not enjoying the things that you want to do, you don't enjoy the things you used to do, and this goes on for more than 2 weeks, that's gonna have to be a red flag. That's gonna be like, you know what, something might not be okay here, something might be wrong, I got to get this checked out, I want to talk to somebody. Because if you think about it, if your child had a runny nose and a fever for a couple of days, you'd be like, yeah, they probably have a cold or something, they're going through something. And then you see they start to, pick up and do their regular stuff again and act normal. You probably wouldn't worry about that. But if something like that went on for like 2 weeks, you probably would take your child to a doctor. It's the same with this. And then again, how much does it impair your daily functioning? If it gets in the way of you living your best life, chances are something's wrong. All right, and these are just some of the things that you might see. And again, you have to look at it as if your child has always been kind of on the shy side, prefers to stay in a room and read a book or draw and just likes being alone. It makes her happy. And she's always kind of been like that. Like, yeah, she will socialize and there's nothing wrong. She goes to school and she interacts with the other kids. She comes home, she just likes being by herself. She's out in the backyard and just gardening, whatever. And that's quote unquote normal for her or typical behavior. That's not something you need to worry about. But on the other hand, if you have a kid like I was, always wanted to hang out with her friends. I always wanted to go, hey, I'm going to call this person and see if they can go to the mall and let's get a group together and let's have a cookout and let's do this. And I want to, make play dates, things like that. Going from that to, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm just going to lay in my bed and sleep. That's an issue. That's a warning sign. So going from somebody you were to a different form of you, completely, very radical. It's not like with teenagers, sometimes you see like they will experiment with what they're dressing, how they're dressing, or coloring their hair, or piercings, or, things like that. That's kind of typical teenage behavior. But if you find that they're beginning to have some, they're becoming defiant all the time, and you think that they might be experimenting with drugs, alcohol, things like that, that might be a concern if they've gone from being this, really straight-laced kid to having a lot of changes where they're in their behavior and their looks. And again, it's kind of normal, typical behavior for teenagers not to want to hang around with their family. or the parents. I remember when I was young, I only wanted to go to the mall with my mom if she was going to buy me something. So that's typical behavior. But when you're saying, I don't want to hang around with my friends, I don't want to be with my family, like ever, I don't want to go anywhere, do anything, though, that's a warning sign. That's a big, big warning sign. All right, I'm going to read a couple of these, and if you can put your comments in the chat, that would be great. All right, I'm going to read a couple different scenarios. You've seen that Anna has been happy 1 minute, crying the next, and angry, all in the span of what seems like 5 minutes. When you ask her what's going on, she says she doesn't know, but she's open to talking about it with you and about how you can support her through this time. So do you guys think that is typical teenage behavior or something to worry about? Okay. Okay. All right, we have a couple of responses. Typical behavior. That is correct. That is typical behavior for a teenager. As long as she's willing to talk to you, she's open to your support. Mood swings are pretty common in teenagers, unfortunately. Oh, and women at my stage of life also. But nothing to be concerned about. So here's another one. You are shocked to see that Susie's report card shows that she's failing several classes. She recently broke up with her boyfriend of 2 years. You've just learned that she's been spending time in chat rooms rather than with her friends. She's been sneaking out of the house at night, and you're concerned she may be using drugs. What do we think about that one? Typical or concerned? Okay, we have a couple people saying concerned. Thank you for your answers. Otherwise, I'd have to start calling on people. Don't want that. Yes, concerned. It could, and this one could actually kind of go either way, right? This one might be the one where you're like, is that concerning or not? But yeah, I would err on the side. This one, it said it could go either way. On the paper, it says could go either way. But I'm with you guys. I'd be concerned about that. All right, one more. Kelsey has been focusing on losing weight, going to the gym regularly, and watching her diet and making sure to work out upstairs in her room immediately after dinner. You've had to start buying her smaller clothes due to her weight loss, but she still seems to be within a healthy weight. This one's a tough one. Concerned or not concerned or typical? Definitely. Good job, guys. Concerned. And the key to this one is that she just seems really intent on losing weight. Right after dinner, she goes upstairs and to work out. It's more of it's not typical behavior. It's not something that is, hey, I'm going to watch my weight. I'd really like to get healthy. This is something that you might want to, well, you definitely want to look into. So yeah, awesome. Thank you guys for answering. Okay, suicide. This is a heavy topic. If it's triggering for anyone, we always tell the kids when we do this in schools, if this is a triggering thing for you, if you've been affected by suicide at all, you definitely can leave the presentation. We tell them that somebody is available to talk with them, because since suicide, unfortunately does happen in high school and in the schools, they might have been exposed to this. For me, what stood out here is, first of all, the second leading cause of death for individuals ages 10 to 24. Second leading cause of death, number 2. That's alarming. And then the other thing that caught my eye was individuals ages 10 to 24. When I was a 10-year-old, I don't even playing Barbies and having a good time, you know. So for our youth that young to even be contemplating suicide is definitely concerning. We're going to go over some risk factors for suicide. Obviously, if they have previously attempted suicide, you're going to want to keep an eye on that. Trauma. The more traumatic events that happen in a child's life, the more likely they are to attempt suicide, obviously, for obvious reasons. There are risk factors, and then there are signs. So the risk factors are having attempted suicide, traumatic life events. And then the symptoms are going to be some of the things that we're going to talk about next. So if they are talking, writing, or drawing about death, that's a big one. If they're writing poems, very, very dark poems, and it doesn't seem to relieve them of their I don't want to say bad feelings, negative feelings, because some people use writing for therapy. But if it still seems like that person is down and negative and gloom and doom, that's probably not a healthy outlet for them. If they're talking about having no reason to live or being a burden, for me, that's a big thing for me when my mental health issue is not under control, when my mental illness is not under control. I have a tendency to say to my friends, like, I'm just too much. I don't know why you're my friend. I call all the time. I'm just a downer. You know, I will cancel plans with people because I'm afraid of being the person, you know, everybody else is having fun and I'm going to bring everybody else down. So if they're talking about that, I don't want to be here. I'm done. If they have done something wrong and they're feeling trapped, like there's no way out, that's a huge warning sign. Again, loss of interest in things they care about. A big one with teenagers, with kids, is giving things away. If they're giving away their electronic devices, if they're giving away, say, a teddy bear that their grandma gave them when they were little, and they sleep with it every night, and it's very, very important to them, and they give it to somebody because they want somebody to take care of that thing because they're not going to be here anymore to take care of it. If they're talking about being, you know, please don't tell my mom or dad I said this, and I just am done, I don't want to do this anymore, and you're not quite sure what they're talking about. But if they just say things like that, those are red flags also. All right, if you think somebody is considering suicide, you've noticed some warning signs like we talked about. Now it's your turn. You have to respond. Ask that person, ask that child, that student, if they're thinking about suicide. And this is a falsehood. People think that if you bring it up, it's going to put that idea in their head and you're going to be like, oh, you know, here's an option for you. I guarantee you they're already thinking about it. You're not putting anything into their head that they haven't thought about. And it's been proven that with suicide, people who have committed suicide or completed suicide, it's been said that if just one person would have reached out to that person and, you know, expressed concern, that could have been avoided. Asking the direct question is important. Are you thinking about suicide? And chances are, like I said before, they are probably not going to be like, yeah, you know what, I want to kill myself. They're probably going to say, I don't know, I'm just done. There's nothing else I can do about this situation, or I feel trapped, or I feel like there's no hope. I just don't want to be here, blah, blah, blah. Those are going to be the answer to your question. And it doesn't say here, but the exact next question you're going to ask them is, do you have a plan? Because there's a difference between thinking about it and planning it and completing it. So let's just say you were thinking about going to the new, I hear there's a new Top Gun movie coming out, I guess. And you're thinking, hey, I'd really like to go see that movie. You know, I'm not sure. I want to. We'll see what happens, right? But then you call your friend and you're like, hey, I want to go see that new Top Gun movie. Will you go with me? I bought us tickets for the 6 o'clock show. Let's go. Popcorn's on me. Okay, so the difference is like, you were just thinking about it, like it's an option, right? But then you go to making a plan, you're probably going to end up following through with that plan because you've put a lot of thought into it. You're pretty sure what you want to do. So that right there is really important, the distinguisher. Don't leave them alone. Seek help immediately. So maybe call your child's doctor. I know sometimes doctors can be hard to get a hold of, but you can definitely call a mental health services. You can get not referrals from us, but we can hook you up with resources of different mental health services in the area, in your area. If in doubt, seriously, call 911. They don't mind. And another thing about that is we provide crisis intervention training to the police officers here in Racine County. I've just been told last week by one of our officers that 80% of our police officers are crisis intervention trained. So if you're calling for a mental health issue, you can request a CIT trained officer, a crisis intervention trained officer, and they will send one if one is available. And with 80% of our police officers being trained, that's a pretty good chance you're going to get somebody who is trained in dealing with these situations. And then you can also call the suicide hotline. I'll give you the number for that at the end of the presentation. Okay, so you're going to first talk to your child or whoever is in need, their friend or whoever. It's important, first of all, that they feel heard and they don't feel judged, and that they are aware that you cannot promise confidentiality. Again, when we go into the schools, we teach the kids, or we try to get across the message that do not keep this secret. This is a secret you don't keep. You can maybe keep the secret that your friend snuck out last night. She walked to the gas station and got some candy because she was hungry for M&Ms. Okay, that is one of those secrets we tell the kids, you can keep that secret. Maybe. I mean, it's never good to keep secrets, but you know what I mean. The secret of, hey, I feel like I don't want to be here anymore. I've thought about killing myself. I've thought about taking some medicine and not waking up. That's a secret you're not ever going to keep. We tell the kids that, and that's the same for us. You can't go and promise a kid that you're not going to go to their parents or their school counselor or somebody, because that's too big of a secret to keep. And you can reassure that child that sometimes it takes a team of people to find the best route. And that's what I'm going to need to do. Just be open to whatever they have to tell you. Stay calm and talk to them calmly and rationally, because that's what they need from you. They need to be reassured that somebody has this situation under control and you're that person. These are some of the open-ended questions that you can ask to get some more information, and just reassure them. Like I said, assure that I'm here to help. And that's a simple thing you can say. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you. I'm not going to judge you. I am not going to, this situation can be fixed, and I'm going to help you do that. Excuse me. All right. Oops, sorry. This video is like one of my favorite videos of all time. It talks about empathy. It's cute, it's funny, and it's really impactful.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection. So what is empathy?
Yep. Okay, so I always like to follow that video up with, if you remember one thing from this training, nobody likes a silver liner. Nobody likes an at-leaster. That's not being empathetic. It's not making the problem better. Again, you just want to connect with that person, show them that you genuinely care about them and that you are there to help find a solution. Very briefly, we're going to go over this for the sake of time. You're going to want to talk with your school staff. So like I said, your student's teacher, your daughter, your son's teacher, they know a lot about your kid, and you're gonna want to put a plan into place for communication. Hey, I'm going to check up with you once a week, twice a week, whatever, every day. Via email, phone, whatever, you set that communication up so that you can keep tabs on your kid. And any adjustments that need to be made as far as accommodating your child's difficulties, that can be made with your school staff also. Healthcare professionals too. First step would be to get in touch with your child's primary physician. They will be able to point you in the right direction as far as maybe finding a therapist, a counselor, ask if they maybe need an evaluation with a psychiatrist or a mental health professional. ask for referrals, and then go ahead and educate yourself. There's a lot of information, as we all know, on the internet. Go in and research that, and then go into your doctor's office with those questions. Write down your questions and get them answered by your doctor. And if your doctor doesn't know those answers, go to someone else until you can find out the answers you need. All right, resilience and well-being. Kids are such sponges, we all know, like they pick up on everything. You're gonna wanna build their self-esteem and give them a positive self-view. I learned this from my daughter, actually. She's a therapist and she has a son, my grandson. He's so cute, he's 2. But she's working really hard to build that self-esteem and that self-resilience. We don't just tell him he's cute all the time. He is cute, but in addition to telling him he's cute, we want to instill in him that he's capable. I'm proud of you that you really tried hard at that. Keep trying, you're gonna get the hang of that. Or, hey, that strategy, that didn't work out really well. Let's try something different. And you can do that with older kids too. Like, I really like how you pushed through that. I know you didn't get the grade on that paper that you wanted, but wow, you worked really hard. It's not always about the product. We can celebrate the process too, and make our child feel good about that they tried hard, and that if they keep trying, things, could improve. Like, keep at it. You're gonna get the hang of this. All right. And then just a little bit about resources. You can go to the NAMI website, or you can go to NAMIRacineCounty.org for specific resources in our area. And these are our partner presentations. Like I said, we go in and we give the Ending the Silence presentation to kids, to teenagers. And we also have it for school staff, which we are planning to implement this coming school year. And there is the crisis line I talked about. There's a crisis text line, 741-741, so you don't actually have to talk to anybody, which I know kids sometimes don't like talking, but texting, they're all over that. And then the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, they don't have that listed on here, but it's 1-800-273-8255. And those are hotlines. You can call them at any time. We at NAMI Racine County don't have a hotline available, but we do have, if you leave a message for us, our resource person, her name is Mary, she'll get back to you, but she doesn't handle any kind of crisis situations. But again, if you want to get in touch with her, if you want to know where can I find a therapist, where can I find a doctor that works with my insurance, or what if I don't have insurance, things like that, give us a call. So that is the end of my presentation. I am going to hand it over to Vishal, and he's going to give you his story about his lived experience, which I think honestly is the most important part of the presentation, definitely.
All right, hey everyone, thanks Sherry for going through a majority of the presentation. I'll talk about my lived experience. So as Sherry said, my name is Vishal. I'm 22 right now, and I come from a heritage of like Indian parents. So I'm a first generation child. My parents are immigrants from India, and I'm also bilingual. Right now, I'll just go over some things about me that hopefully you can either relate with or just kind of identify with if you know someone, to really drive the story home. Let's see, what else is there? Right now I'm a college student at Carthage College, majoring in social work, and my last year finally graduating. So I'm excited for that. And oh yeah. And then let's see what else. I have 2 pet ferrets. I'm gonna adopt a dog soon. once I go down to Loyola for my master's. And some hobbies include reading, playing video games, working out, and of course, like watching shows, movies, and stuff like that. So what happened was that when I was like around 14 years old, so this was like freshman year of high school, I started to become really like secluded, and I had lots of anxiety and just overall sadness. I remember Sherry was mentioning how depending on how your mood may be prior to how, like prior to the onset of a mental illness, it can indicate like what's going on. For me, I was a shy kid, but I was relatively like, friendly and open to talking to people. But I noticed that just during that freshman year of high school, I again just started to seclude myself and was really isolated. Um, I remember vividly that like it was in the month of February of 2015 that I started to have like mental breakdowns, like either day after day or every other day, where there would be, like I would cry a lot. I would just be confused as to what was going on. On some days, I just wouldn't go to school and I just like lock myself in my room. So there was that. And I remember specifically, I think it was towards the end of the month, I had a really bad mental breakdown and I was like yelling and screaming at my parents and just like, in distress. Like I had no idea what was going on. Um, Even, back then, like they didn't have much education on mental illness and like mental health. So I was just as confused as anyone else was. And, I was there begging my parents for help and they didn't know what to do. So they essentially called 911, just like how Sherry mentioned, like if you don't know what to do, at the very least, you can do that. And from there, I was admitted into a psychiatric ward. It was, I think it was All Saints down in downtown Racine, but now it's Ascension. And there I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and severe social anxiety. And I remember like this was when I was 14, so it wasn't anything that I could comprehend at the time. It was just me and the psychiatrist in that room. And it felt like everything I'd known and everything that I'd hoped for had just kind of been thrown away. And now I had to go towards this path that I didn't even know existed. And I just kind of felt like I was damaged, unwanted, and just like broken. And so like the best way I could compare it to is if you've ever felt, sad, everyone's felt sad once in a while or lonely or anything like that. It's like that, but you just can't stop the feeling. It kept going. And so over a long period of time, nearly 7, 8 years now in my recovery journey, I had to learn some basics in order to help me cope with my mental illness and come to terms with it. And it was in the form of like acceptance, different techniques that I learned to help soothe myself, and of course, like medication. So for social anxiety, I learned a lot of techniques to help regulate my heartbeat and help like the racing thoughts that I would have. So things like breathing techniques, grounding techniques, and then just simply taking care of my needs helped a lot. My favorite breathing technique is the 4 square breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you rest for 4 seconds. And you repeat that till you feel like you're in a place where you can stay at a relatively calm, stay in a relatively calm way. Um, for my social anxiety, I also had medication. I was on, I believe it was Trintellix, and it was, for me, it worked. It was, I think, an antipsychotic, they called it. And now I no longer have to take it. So I've gotten to a point where I'm able to help myself without that medication. So I'm really grateful for that. For depression, I take antidepressants right now. I I mean, without them, I'd be a completely different person, but I'm really grateful that I can at least have something to help regulate my mind. Um, for depression, a lot of it came from taking care of my needs. Again, just, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, eating right. But also it heavily helped to have like a support network. Um, I noticed that the more that I isolated, it was a vicious cycle. Like it would build into me not wanting to see anyone, which meant that I didn't, interact with people, socialize, which meant I started to become afraid. And then I felt lonely, which the depression would kick in and it would just kind of feed off like one another. So I had to learn to like break that cycle somewhere. But also things like journaling, art therapy, and stuff like that also help to just sort of push back on those depressive thoughts and stuff that would come in from time to time. And so, I mean, over these long years that I've had in my recovery, I've just sort of learned that it's okay to be myself, that it's okay to live life in a way that is unapologetic. Like, I don't have to adhere to anyone's rules and stuff except for my own, and just trying to aim for like the best version of myself. And so the way I see it, like things like, for example, graduating college, which is, in the horizon, or just like advocating for others by doing these sort of talks and just trying to be the best person that I can be is the way that I see success, rather than like trying to combat or trying to hide my mental illness. It is a part of me, but it doesn't make up the whole of me. And I mean, yeah, that's about it for my story. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. You can even be about like what kind of books I like to read or anything like that.
Any questions for Vishal?
While people are thinking of questions, we did receive a couple throughout the course of the presentation. So I'll throw those out there for you, Sherry or Vishal, if either of you would like to take them. The first question is, this education in schools is so important and valuable. The participant is wondering if there are any educational opportunities for parents as well. For example, how do you handle parents that say, there's nothing wrong with my child?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's very common. We at NAMI, we are on that. We are going to be scheduling this very presentation. Hopefully, I want to say at the library. We want to find a place that is accessible to everybody. So we're planning on doing that before the school year starts, so that when that child goes to school and they're hearing the Ending the Silence program and they come home, the family is going to know how to talk to them about it. We're also planning on presenting the ETS for staff members so they can be on board with that. So we're hoping that that is going to create a conversation with the staff, with the families, with the teenagers. As far as approaching somebody about their child, and especially somebody who says, oh, that's not my child, there's nothing wrong with my child, it must be the teacher, it must be this, it must be that. For me, and I can't give any like professional advice, I don't know that there's any wrong way or right way to do that. For me in the past, I have an experience similar to that. My very close friend years and years ago, her son was displaying signs of autism. And I saw it, and I, for, couple, 3-4 months, kind of, even I was like, oh, okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong. And then I realized, you know what, if I don't say something to her and he doesn't get help, he's going to struggle. It's going to be a struggle. So I researched it. At the time, there was no internet. So I researched it and found some resources for her and said, hey, you know, I looked up the symptoms and your child does, you know, he does a lot of this. I've seen him do this. I've seen him do that. I've seen him struggle with this, you know, and I looked it up and there's this doctor that, you know, it's very close to our house. I'd be glad to go with you. And let's just rule that out, or let's just go see what's going on. And it turned into, yes, he did have autism, and she enrolled him in a program right away, and he's actually doing very well for himself now. So in my experience, I would say gather some information and look, you know, you have proof. Like if you can say, hey, I've noticed that your child, your son, has become really, you know, not himself lately and just kind of isolating themselves. Do you see that? And if they say, no, you know, and then if you can give them like, hey, I can see this, this, and this, I'd be glad to go with you. Let's go to a support group. I'll come with you. Letting them know, I think, again, I really honestly believe with my whole heart, connection with somebody is the most important part of getting help for anything. You want to let that person know you are here for them. I'm going to go with you, and not just say, hey, if you need something, call me. No, hey, there's a support group tonight. I'm going to come pick you up, and then we're going to go out for ice cream. Whatever. Throw some food in there. I find like food is always a good motivator. But yeah, that's my advice. I don't know if anybody else has any other experiences they can share. But yeah, I just say connect with that person, show them the proof, and tell them you're there for them.
Thank you, Sherry. I think you answered that question very well, and it also really covered the response to another question that was kind of similar, which was any advice for helping friends to realize, accept, and address that their child or children may be headed in a direction that might suggest a mental health program or problem. And I think that the advice that you just gave kind of hit that on the head. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate you and Vishal sharing your expertise and your experiences with us today. I feel pretty certain that everybody here has learned something new, some little nugget of information that they can take with them today as they go forth with the rest of their day. Jen has added some resources in the chat, and we'll also send those in the follow-up email that you'll receive within the next 48 hours. Like always, both NAMI and United Way value your feedback, and we would greatly appreciate you taking a few minutes to complete a brief survey. So Jen put a PDF of that survey in the chat. You could download that, fill it out, and then email it to NAMI. I also created a brief web form for it. So if you'd like to just answer a few questions on an online form, we would certainly appreciate that. As we wrap up today's session, I want to thank Sherry and Vishal again. I also want to acknowledge Pat Bohan, Michelle Gehring, Ellie Haig and Jen Bastron for their support in the planning, promotion, and implementation of today's event. It always takes a team of people to make things like this happen, even if you don't see them all on the day of the event. Lots of people working together to make this today's presentation a reality. And I want to thank all of you again for joining us. We appreciate you spending an hour with us today and hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.